As the dust of the Crusades settled, casting long shadows over a world weary from years of holy wars, a sinister undercurrent began to surface. The year is 1307, and the dissolution of the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem has left in its wake a trail of disbanded crusaders and monastic knights. Among these are an order revered in military prowess and faith, the Knights Templar. For 200 years, they were the most powerful military order of the Crusades, but now they are desperate to evade the persecution that beckons them. On a tormented Friday the 13th, an origin of the superstition, their downfall would be orchestrated by the envy of kings and the church, marked by dark accusations of heresy and blasphemy. These events served as a death note for those who once were the guardians of Christian pilgrims. But how did these revered knights become targets of such damning allegations? And who were the shadowy figures orchestrating their fall? Amidst this murky backdrop of secrecy emerges a tragic figure, Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Templars. His final stand, culminating in his execution by fire in 1314, raises haunting questions about the nature of the Order's true goals and just how powerful this shadowy organization had become. As one of history's most intriguing and mythologized organizations, de Molay's final words have echoed for over 700 years. God knows who is wrong and has sinned. Soon a calamity will occur to those who have condemned us to death. Are we ready to confront the uncomfortable truths of the medieval world and holy wars, to explore the dark corridors of power and greed that led to the vilification and dissolution of one of history's most formidable orders? Join us as we unravel the tangled web of accusations, the tireless struggle for power and control, and the haunting mysteries of the Knights Templar. Welcome to the Chronicles of the Raven. Chapter 1. The Knights Templar: Origins, Purpose, and Downfall. At the end of the 13th century, as the dust settled from the intensity of the Crusades, a new chapter was unfolding that would mark the end of an era for a mythical order. This tale of downfall would lead to unjust and violent trials and the rejection of an organization that was so highly relied upon by Pope and King that they seemingly would bow to no one. But as we turn back time centuries before that fateful Friday the 13th, in the aftermath of the First Crusade's success in 1099, a unique brotherhood emerged, destined to become one of history's most mysterious and powerful military orders, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. But as that was a mouthful, they are more commonly known as the Knights Templar. The Crusades were a series of religious wars sanctioned by the Latin Church in the medieval period, aimed at recovering the Holy Land from Islamic rule. And thus, the Knights Templar, founded around 1119 by Hugues de Payens and Godfrey de Saint-Omer, were initially conceived to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, a so-called noble cause for the organization that rapidly evolved into military engagement for the Crusades, embodied by their motto, "Not for us, my Lord, not for us, but to your name give the glory." The papal bull, an order given by the Pope, issued by Pope Innocent II in 1139, endorsed the Templars, exempting them from local laws and taxes and placing them directly under papal authority. The Templars took vows of poverty, celibacy, and obedience, but their humble beginnings contradicted the extraordinary impact they would have on the medieval world. Their iconic white chest plates, boldly covered with a red cross, became a symbol of Christian militarism and the crusading spirit that swept across Europe. The Templars were formidable warriors, their number growing to thousands of knights and sergeants. They were the heavily armored cavalry, the shock troops of the Crusades, who charged into battle without a thought for retreat, driven by a deep religious belief and a disciplined military efficiency that was unmatched. Their exploits on the battlefield, from the pivotal Battle of Montgisard in 1177 to the sieges of Jerusalem and Acre in 1187 and 1191 respectively, were legendary, cementing their reputation as fearsome fighters and strategic masterminds of warfare. Beyond the battlefield, the Templars established a vast network of fortresses and commanderies, defined as districts under the control of a commander of an order of knights. Additionally, they also set up banks across Europe and the Near East, creating an early form of financial infrastructure that included innovative banking practices like loans, deposits, and even a form of travelers' checks. This network facilitated the movement of money and goods, financing crusades, and supporting the Christian states in the Holy Land. Their economic prowess was such that by the 12th and 13th centuries, the Templars had amassed wealth and influence that rivaled that of the most powerful kingdoms, managing vast agricultural estates, participating in international trade, and even acting as financial advisors and tax collectors for monarchs. In a time when the concept of banking was as distant as the far-flung lands of the Orient, the Templars innovated a system of financial transactions that can only be marveled at for its foresight and complexity. With nearly 1,000 commanderies and fortresses spread across Europe and the sacred soil of Jerusalem, the Templars wielded power that transcended the mere clashing of swords. They introduced the world to an early form of banking, ingeniously crafting a system of letters of credit for the faithful pilgrims journeying to the Holy Land. This early financial network allowed pilgrims to deposit their valuables with the Templars at their local commandery, receiving in return a document that guaranteed them access to equivalent funds upon reaching their destination. This protected the pilgrims from lurking thieves, making their holy mission less burdensome, while simultaneously weaving the Templars deeper into Christendom's economy. This remarkable blend of military skills and financial technical ability turned the Templars into one of the most influential orders of the medieval world, their white mantles, with a red cross, becoming symbols of both fear and awe. The Templars' commanderies, which ranged from fortified castles in strategic military locations to simple farming regions, were centers of power and wealth management. They oversaw the lands, managing the production of goods, and facilitating the storage and transfer of resources essential for the sustenance of Templar forces and the support of the Crusader states. The Templars' influence extended into the social and political realms. They were trusted by kings and popes alike, who often sought their counsel and relied on their financial wizardry. Their close relationship with the Pope's office, or papacy, afforded them privileges and protections that enabled them to operate across national borders with impunity, a fact that later contributed to their downfall as jealousy and mistrust grew among secular rulers. For nearly 2 centuries, the Knights Templar stood at the forefront of the Christian crusading endeavor, embodying the warmongering spirit of the age. They were pioneers in military tactics, international banking, and the creation of a pan-European identity rooted in Christian militancy and devotion. However, their very success sowed the seeds of their eventual destruction, as their wealth, power, and autonomy provoked the envy and greed of those they served. Their base on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, believed to be atop the ruins of the Temple of Solomon, lent the order its name and a mystique that would grow over the centuries. As the Crusader states in the Holy Land began to fall, the Templars' military mission became less defined, and their wealth became a source of envy and suspicion. The fall of Acre in 1291, the last Crusader stronghold, marked the beginning of the end for the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem and left the Templars without a clear purpose. For why should an order designed to protect Christian pilgrims be given gold to fight in wars that no longer existed? How could they be expected to continue if they couldn't protect the very things the Crusades were fought over? The downfall of the Knights Templar was not a sudden event but a gradual decline that culminated in their abrupt and dramatic suppression in the early 14th century. The shifting political and religious landscape of Europe, marked by the rise of powerful kings and queens, and a pope struggling to assert its authority, created an ominous situation for the order. It was against this backdrop that Philip IV of France, driven by desperation, greed, and a debt owed to the order, leveled unfounded accusations against the Templars, accusing them of heresy, sodomy, and blasphemy. These charges, though largely baseless, found a receptive audience in a Europe riddled with fear and suspicion following the Crusades, and gave them someone to blame. The arrest of the Templars in 1307 by Philip's order, followed by the papal dissolution of the organization in 1312, under pressure from the French crown, marked the end of the Knights Templar as a military and religious force. Yet the trials and execution of its leaders, especially the burning at the stake of the last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, ensured that the Templars would forever be enshrined in legend and myth. Chapter 2. The Arrest and Trials of the Templars. The Templars' arrest on Friday, October 13, 1307, a date now shrouded in superstition, was meticulously orchestrated by Philip's decree. Under the cover of darkness, Templars across France were simultaneously seized, their properties raided and their riches appropriated. The charges against them were as sensational as they were illegitimate: heresy, idolatry, and corruption, accusations that shocked Christendom to its core and eroded public trust immediately. The ensuing trials were a mockery of medieval law, characterized by forced confessions obtained under the most harrowing tortures known to the era. First the rack, then the strappado, a system of torture in which a victim was hoisted by a rope tied to his wrists and then allowed to drop until his fall was suddenly checked by the rope. And finally, various uses of fire were employed not in pursuit of truth, but to extract confessions that would validate the king's claims. Under duress, many Templars described tales of sacrilege and sorcery, of secret rituals conducted in the dead of night where the sacred cross was defiled and allegiance to Christ was renounced. Yet, these confessions, extracted under the shadow of pain and the threat of death, were full of inconsistencies and contradictions, more reflective of the torturer's imagination than any reality within the Templar order. The Templars were accused of spitting on the cross, engaging in homosexual practices, and worshipping Baphomet, a mysterious satanic idol purportedly revered by the order. These allegations were largely based on coerced testimony and hearsay, yet they served Philip's purpose well, casting a dark shadow over the Templar order. Pope Clement V, swayed by political pressures and his own precarious position against the assertive monarchy of France, initiated papal inquisitions to further investigate the charges. The papal hearings, however, were little more than a continuation of the injustices that began under royal auspices. Despite numerous retractions of confessions and the defense mounted by some Templars, the fate of the order seemed sealed. The trials underscored a significant evolution in medieval law, marking one of the first major instances where the power of the state and the power of the church were wielded against a single target. The proceedings against the Templars introduced a precedent for the suppression of dissent and the manipulation of legal frameworks for political and financial gain. The use of torture to extract confessions, the denial of fair representation, and the disregard for canonical law all painted a grim picture of judicial corruption. As the trials progressed, it became evident that the Templars were not just battling against the charges levied upon them, but were also caught in the crossfire of a larger struggle between secular rulers and the Church for supremacy. The order's eventual dissolution by the papal decree Vox in Excelso, or in English, A Voice from on High, in 1312, was a testament to the potent combination of political and legal manipulation that characterized the era. The punishment given out to those found guilty was indeed severe and merciless. The dungeons became the final abode for many Templars who, under the unbearable weight of torture, saw their spirits broken and their faith questioned. The dungeons of the era were dismal places, where light seldom ventured and hope was a rare visitor. For many Templars, the physical and psychological torment of confinement was as unbearable as the torture itself, driving them to recant their forced confessions in a desperate bid for mercy or release. Yet this very act of retracting their confessions sealed their fate. In the twisted logic of the inquisitors, to recant was to admit guilt anew, a relapse into heresy that the Church deemed unforgivable. This crime, above all, warranted the most extreme form of punishment known to the medieval judicial system: death by fire. The burning stake became the grim symbol of the Templars' fall from grace, a public spectacle that served as a warning to all who dared challenge the authority of the Church or the Crown. Among those who faced this fiery fate were Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, and Geoffroy de Charnay, the preceptor of Normandy. Both men, held in captivity since their arrest in 1307, endured years of imprisonment under harsh conditions. Their long confinement was marked by periods of isolation, interrogation, and torture, as their captors sought to extract confessions and further implicate the order in heretical practices. Despite the physical and mental anguish they suffered, both de Molay and de Charnay remained steadfast in their innocence until the end. In the twilight of their existence, the Knights Templar found themselves stripped of their former glory, their sanctity tarnished by accusations most foul. Yet, amidst the ashes of their crumbling legacy, The Ember of Honor remained fiercely guarded by the last Grandmaster, Jacques de Molay. His story is not merely one of demise, but of a valiant stand against the tidal forces of betrayal and injustice. March 18, 1314, marked the culmination of the Templars' tragic saga. De Molay, alongside his brothers, faced the pyres not with the fear of men condemned, but with the dignity of knights undeterred by the prospect of martyrdom. Their execution in Paris was a spectacle of sorrow and awe, a testament to their unwavering spirit. The Grand Master's final words, a prophecy foretelling the doom of those who had orchestrated their downfall, echoed through the hallowed grounds, coating the moment with a sense of divine retribution. God knows who is wrong and has sinned. Soon, a calamity will occur to those who have condemned us to death. The execution of these two prominent Templars was not just the extinguishing of lives, but also the final blow to the Templar order itself. Their deaths symbolized the tragic end of an era for the Templars, whose legacy of valor and devotion was overshadowed by the scandal and intrigue that led to their downfall. The smoldering ashes of the stake on that fateful day in Paris were a testament to the destructive power of greed and fear, leaving a mark on history that would not soon be forgotten. Chapter 3. The Financial Empire of the Templars. Envy of European monarchies. The Templars' financial operations were revolutionary. They developed an early form of banking that allowed pilgrims to deposit funds in their home countries and withdraw equivalent amounts upon reaching the Holy Land, safeguarding them from the perils of carrying gold and silver on dangerous journeys. This system of Templar checks not only provided security for pilgrims, but also amassed substantial wealth for the order, with interest on loans and deposits becoming a significant source of income. The order's financial ingenuity extended to vast agricultural enterprises, wineries, and commercial ventures. They owned fleets of ships for trade, and their commanderies across Europe and the Holy Land served as hubs of economic activity. The Templars' ability to move funds across borders with ease made them indispensable to monarchs and the papacy alike, who often relied on their financial services for the facilitation of large-scale transactions and loans. However, the Templars' wealth and their exemption from taxes under papal decrees made them a target of envy and suspicion. Kings and nobles indebted to the Templars began to view their financial power as a threat to their own sovereignty. The order's secretive nature and autonomous legal status, answerable only to the Pope, further fueled accusations of heresy and misconduct. King Philip IV of France, deeply indebted to the Templars, saw an opportunity to erase his debts and seize their wealth. The charges of heresy and blasphemy that led to the Templars' arrest were largely motivated by Philip's desire to confiscate their assets. The dissolution of the Templars not only allowed Philip to appropriate their wealth, but also served as a stark warning to other institutions of the lengths to which he would go to secure financial and political dominance. After the dissolution of the Knights Templar in 1312 by Pope Clement V, the fate of their vast wealth, including gold, land, and other treasures, became the subject of much speculation and intrigue. Officially, the papal decree transferred the majority of the Templars' assets to the Order of the Hospital of St. John, also known as the Knights Hospitaller. This transfer was meant to ensure that the resources previously held by the Templars would continue to support Christian military efforts in the Holy Land and other charitable activities. However, the reality of this transfer was far more complex and varied by region. In some areas, the Hospitallers received the Templars' properties and wealth without significant issues. They were a beacon of hope and healing amidst the bloodshed. Founded in the early 12th century, around the same time as the fabled Knights Templar, the Hospitallers initially focused on providing care for the poor and sick pilgrims in the Holy Land. Their mission soon expanded beyond the walls of their hospitals to the battlegrounds, where they fought with valor to protect the Christian territories. Covered in their distinctive black mantles adorned with a white cross, the Hospitallers became renowned for their dual commitment to faith and martial prowess. As the Crusader states wavered under the relentless advance of Muslim forces, the Hospitallers stood as heroic defenders of the faith, managing vast tracts of land and fortresses. Their most significant stronghold, the mighty Crac des Chevaliers, became a symbol of Christian military architecture and the spirit of the Crusades. In other regions, local monarchs and nobility seized Templar assets for their own use, citing debts owed by the Templars or using the dissolution as an opportunity to enhance their own coffers and lands. The most notable example of such seizure occurred in France, where King Philip IV, who had been instrumental in bringing down the Templars, confiscated a vast portion of their assets, significantly enriching the French crown and helping to alleviate the kingdom's financial strains. The actual gold and monetary wealth of the Templars, rumored to be immense, has been the subject of much legend and myth. There are countless stories about hidden Templar treasures, secret caches of gold, and mysterious relics spirited away in the night as the order was being suppressed. These tales have fueled countless quests and speculative searches, but no substantial evidence of such hidden treasures has ever been conclusively brought to light. While the hospital has certainly inherited a significant portion of the Templars' assets, the full extent of the Templar wealth and its final destinations remain partly shrouded in the mists of history and mystery. The Templars' innovative financial practices laid the groundwork for modern banking systems, yet their downfall illustrated the dangers of accumulating wealth and power that could rival that of states and monarchies. Chapter 4. The Papal Dissolution of the Templars, a Schism in Christendom. In 1312, under the shadowy veil of the medieval morning, Pope Clement V issued a decree that would resound through the corridors of history as the death warning for the Knights Templar. This act was not merely an ecclesiastical maneuver, that is to say relating to the Christian Church or its clergy, but a cataclysmic event that would forever alter the landscape of Christendom and the very foundation upon which the Church's authority stood. Yet, the dissolution was more than a mere transfer of wealth or a punitive action against perceived heresy. It represented a significant fracture in the ideal of Christendom. The Templars had been the embodiment of Christian soldiers, a bridge between the spiritual and the worldly. Their fall from grace and subsequent annihilation at the hands of the very church they served was an omen of the changing dynamics of power, faith, and loyalty in medieval Europe. The papal dissolution of the Templars was a schism that went beyond the physical dismantling of an order. It was a rift that called into question the sanctity of church decrees, the integrity of ecclesiastical justice, and the infallible nature of papal authority. It highlighted the susceptibility of the Church to external pressures and its willingness to sacrifice its knights on the altar. In the aftermath, Christendom found itself at a crossroads, grappling with the implications of a church that could so readily disavow and destroy its champions. The Templars' legacy, marred by allegations of heresy but also celebrated for its valor, became a symbol of the eternal struggle between spiritual ideals and earthly power. The dissolution opened a Pandora's box of theological and philosophical inquiries about the nature of loyalty, the limits of papal authority, and the true essence of Christian beliefs. At the heart of the Church's involvement was Pope Clement V, a pontiff whose papacy was marked by a precarious balance between asserting the spiritual authority of the Church and navigating the treacherous waters of European politics. Clement's decision to sanction the arrest and trial of the Templars was not born out of a genuine conviction in their guilt, but was a capitulation to the immense pressure exerted by Philip IV. The French king's influence over the papal court, coupled with his relentless pursuit of the Templars' wealth, cornered Clement into a position where the persecution of the order became a necessary evil to preserve the fragile peace between the Church and the French crown. Moreover, the Church's role in propagating the allegations against the Templars served to amplify the order's infamy, transforming them from revered knights of Christendom to vilified heretics in the public eye. This vilification was not merely a consequence of the trials, but a deliberate campaign to delegitimize the Templars and justify their eventual dissolution. The Church's persecution of the Templars laid bare the inherent contradictions within an institution that preached forgiveness and justice, but engaged in coercion and injustice. It highlighted the susceptibility of the Church to earthly desires and its capacity to betray its own for political gain. The legacy of the Templars' persecution by the Church is a testament to the tragic consequences of when spiritual authority is wielded as a weapon. Chapter 5. Enemy Perspective: The Templars during the Crusades. In the twilight of the 12th century, Amidst the chaos of the Crusades, the Knights Templar stood as leaders of Christian militancy in the Holy Land. Their reputation as fearsome warriors and devout guardians of pilgrims was unparalleled. Yet it was precisely these qualities that painted a target on their backs for the Muslim leaders they opposed. Among their most formidable adversaries was Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, whose dedication to Islam and the jihad was as unwavering as the Templars' commitment to Christianity. Saladin, a paragon of Muslim piety and a champion of Sunni Islam, viewed the Crusader states and their military orders not just as political nuisances, but as existential threats to the Islamic way of life. His campaign against the Crusaders was not merely a series of battles for territory, it was a holy war, a jihad, aimed at reclaiming the sacred lands of Islam from foreign invaders. The Templars, with their fearsome military prowess and their outright refusal to negotiate or coexist, epitomized the Crusader menace in Saladin's eyes. The Battle of Hattin in 1187 marked a turning point in the Crusades and showcased Saladin's ruthless resolve against the Templars and Hospitallers. Following his decisive victory, Saladin ordered the execution of captured members of these military orders. This act was not mere retribution, it was a calculated decision born of Saladin's religious convictions and strategic considerations. The Templars and Hospitallers, with their deep-rooted dedication to the Crusader cause and their formidable combat skills, were too dangerous to be allowed to live. Their execution was a message to the Christian world. The Muslim lands would be defended at all costs, and those who sought to desecrate them would meet a swift end. The execution of the Templars and Hospitallers underscored the uncompromising nature of the conflict between the Crusader states and the Muslim world, a conflict in which the Templars found themselves as both revered defenders of Christendom and reviled enemies of Islam. Saladin's commitment to jihad was not merely a duty, but a personal crusade, interwoven with his identity and spiritual convictions. His vision extended beyond the battlefield, aiming for a unified empire under the spiritual guidance of the Abbasid Caliphate. This endeavor was not just about reclaiming Jerusalem, but about revitalizing the essence of Sunni Islam. Saladin's efforts were to reunify Egypt with the Sunni fold after 2 centuries of Fatimid rule, an Islamic dynasty that spanned a large area of North Africa, from the Red Sea in the east to the Atlantic Ocean in the west, with Cairo as the capital. Saladin's desire to end their rule underscored his dedication to a broader Islamic renaissance, fostering a realm where Sunni Islam thrived, confident and tolerant of religious diversity within the bounds of Islam. The downfall of the Templars following their suppression by Pope Clement V and the conspiracies of King Philip IV of France was a seismic event in medieval history. Yet, their end was foreshadowed by the relentless opposition they faced from formidable foes like Saladin. The enemies of the Crusaders, epitomized by Saladin, viewed the Knights Templar not just as adversaries on the battlefield, but as the embodiment of the crusading spirit, a spirit that sought the domination of Christian forces over the Islamic heartlands. In this context, the Templars' ultimate fate, a dissolution marred by scandal and betrayal, can be seen as the culmination of their long-standing role as the spearhead of the Crusader effort, a role that earned them both admiration and animosity across the religious divide. Chapter 6. The Templars' Legacy in European History and Mythology. Despite their brutal fate, the dissolution of the Knights Templar did not spell the end of their influence. Rather, it marked the beginning of their transcendence into the realm of legend and lore. The mystique surrounding the Templars has been perpetuated by tales of hidden treasures, secret rites, and the elusive Holy Grail, embedding them within the collective consciousness as custodians of ancient mysteries. This allure has spawned countless theories and speculations, casting the Templars as both heroes and villains in narratives spanning centuries. Moreover, the Templars' architectural and financial innovations left a permanent mark on the medieval landscape, influencing the development of banking systems and contributing to the Gothic architectural renaissance. Their commanderies, with their distinctive round churches, stand as monuments to their architectural prowess and spiritual devotion. At their end, the Templars became emblematic of the eternal struggle against religious tyranny and the quest for spiritual enlightenment. Their story has inspired generations of writers, artists, and historians, ensuring their place within the halls of historical enigmas. Furthermore, the Templars' influence permeated subsequent military and chivalric orders, with many adopting the Templar cross as a symbol of courage and devotion. The mythology surrounding the Knights Templar has been interwoven into the fabric of cultural and literary expression, creating a diverse legacy that spans from historical accounts to the realms of fiction and speculative theory. This portrayal ranges from guardians of sacred Christian relics to custodians of esoteric knowledge and hidden treasures, reflecting in literature, film, and even video games. The legend of the Templars' association with the Holy Grail, popularized by medieval romances and revitalized in contemporary narratives such as Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code, intertwines the order with quests for divine secrets and ancient conspiracies. Furthermore, their alleged engagement in mystical practices, as suggested by the trial accusations of idolatry and the worship of Baphomet, has fueled a plethora of speculative and occult interpretations. In literature and entertainment, the Templars are often depicted through a lens of creative liberty, allowing for imaginative reinterpretations of their history and ethos. From the historical novels of Sir Walter Scott to the intricate plots of the Assassin's Creed series, the Templars are portrayed as complex figures navigating the interplay of power, secrecy, and ideological conflict. This multifaceted legacy highlights the Templars as a symbol of the intricate blend of fact and fiction, their story resonating through centuries as a compelling narrative of human ambition, spiritual quest, and the eternal search for truth. Through this lens, the Templars invite reflection on the enduring impact of myth on our understanding of history, challenging us to discern the historical figures from the legends that have come to define them.